then the Jinshaban Dajumba Yandaban Zobes and Jerribat. Shazon Demban Devareshaban Jidin, Kemba Juvun de Kaluju. Lana Meba Ladam and Jetemba Sanje Jumden. Pejawa Shajan to Bana Chaz and Ocho Josu. Demba Jumden, then the Jinshaban Dajumba Yandaban Zobes. Ribadan Shazon Demban Devareshaban Jidin, Kemba Juvun de Kaluju. Lana Meba Ladam and Jetemba Sanje Jumden de Shaja Dubana Chazan Rocha the Josu Jail, Damba Jumden the Shinshaban, Dajama Yandaban Sobes, Ribata Shazon de Mandevare Shaban Jidin Jamba Juvundu, Kalojava Lana Meban Lada Menon Jetamba Sanje Jumden, Pejawa Shaja Dubana Chazan Rocha the Josu Jail, Kanzekanyan Zowo Jadamse, Sajan de la Ngani Jidin de la Josu, Tese Kaba Jana Chaz. Namda Gunga Chado Susan Yishi Jasu Sejono Tavan Jiden Sumnama Mebon Gombo Shoni Jana Chance Senjon de Martimenda Vision Sendo Rawa Jana Chance Jude Jeno Seba so much Yame Jenjen Jana Chance Gombo Tuje Shedem Matam Jekeme Sonam Yenden Jasu Jendi Jenshala Chance Taben de Jatu Given Yazon Letter Jidu Tanama Jojo Shigu Jana Chance Chene Treva Maya, Lava Tama Rabdo, Shiga Tama Yuden, Gillian Maya Charles, and Dibachia Major Gawa, Rangi Sene Yonzo, the Tene Sanja, Kamara Mameda, Jumase, Melom Lota, the Jishanum de Derata, Sonam Dia, Tom Jesse, Kovantum, Gada Nada Shiva, Lodrive, Sibes, or Lendro, and Jovo.
The teacher, the blessed one, the one God beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct,
Sugata,
the knower of the world,
supreme guide of beings to be tamed,
teacher of gods and peoples, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror,
the subduer of the Shakya.
I prostrate make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one God beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct,
Sugata,
the Lord of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed,
teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely
and fully awakened one, the
blessed one, the glorious conqueror,
the subduer
from the Shakya class.
I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one God beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one,
The
the
blessed
blessed one, the glorious conqueror,
the
the
subduer
subduer from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O
supreme among humans,
you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who arise then I prostrate. With pure bodies formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, flame that blazes in the 3 worlds. Winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme sun's face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one God to vastness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path to sublime and pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime community and tending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. a star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits, may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the full faults, and be delivered from the ocean of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje shono soje shono ma chanchu bado dane jazuji. Nage jeso jebe sonam je dona benje sanje dobish. Sanje shono soje shono ma chanchu bado dane jazuji. Nage jeso jebe sonam je dona benje sanje dobish. Sanje shono soje shono ma chanchu bado dane jazuji. Nage jeso jebe sonam je dona benje sanje dobish.
I go for refuge in telling enlightenment to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge in telling enlightenment to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge in telling enlightenment to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Tamje jembala cha zemo de da sanje chumden de shishe bantashu. Yanda bonzo be sanje riba da sha zun de ban de warishe ban chi den je ban ji won de ka lo ju. Lana me ba la da me na je de da sanje chumden de so de shishe ba de so no da be ju. Gewezawa nama chumesa sewe rabdo jeba sonam je tere nam jishi peje sambo nam je jeba tse nam je medo jeba juye rinpa tumbo tonam be dimba meba tebe meba nama ngomra gaw sherab sige me demba tom nama zewa meba simje tamje je tenba chanchu simba nam je yap pabe kasa nam je jebo nyangene tebe chanje damjwa nam je tebe yeje pado meba boba samje me jeba son namra tabo yanyeba kuja tabe chomi jeba Kutumba meba debata gamba suda genye wama sumeba tata mende dungela namba tubo pumba tanda namba tubo kam nanda mende keje nanda deba ne shile chep yonzo donwa tanda namba tubo seba le tubo chuo le kiba yishi yonzo deba da majemba da tadari chumbe sanje chumdende ke yishi la ne yapa nyangela deba mende ba yanga ba dike tanda deba simje tamje la sibe sama shuba dedane sanje chumdende je kuchiwe yonde yanda namasu 타베제는 도망게고 바도게고 도망게고 되어서 손져서 만져보 요소도 요소 정원 양다고 또 냄배고 뒤쳐보면 여와도 대통령도 되고 개발은 저 소소한 게 지금 좀 된데 얘도 벌써 bütün도 와도 되고 녀러지는 제번 도배 정주도 좋아지고 밑에만 되고도 때마 요거 지고 대버지벽인데 녀버지고 잡으시고 투버지고 때문에 차제베베 저거 손은지 베지 신은 연연도 중앙선도 지면도 고도원지 맨도 저거 뭐 So today is according to Tibetan calendar Vesak day, the enlightened birth, enlightened and parinirvana. So we do the praises on the 12 exemplary deeds of the Lord Buddha. So in the booklet.
And for people online, they can find it, Larry can find it in the chat.
Oh.
And Julie can find it in the description of the class today.
Okay.
So she needs that.
So you can find in the chat the exemplary deeds. And Julie can find it?
In the description.
A description, yeah. So there's a praises on the 12 exemplary deeds of the Lord Buddha. So ready? Homage to you, King of the Shakyas, whose body is radiant like a mountain of gold, who through the compassion and skill and needs took birth in the Shakya and vanquished the host of evil
that others could not conquer.
Homage to you who awakened first, resolved to attain enlightenment, then fully perfected through the accumulation of merit
and
transcendental wisdom to
to become the protector of living beings through your vast spiritual works in this age. Homage to you who, as the ruler of the gods, knew that the time had come to bring the law to living beings. Descending from the realms of the celestial, you foresaw the plan into which you would take birth, and like a great elephant into the womb of life. Homage to you, scion of the Shakya clan, at whose birth in the grove of Lumbini, 10 full months thereafter, Brahma and Shastra came to pay homage, and sages proclaimed with certainty that you belong to the race of great beings. Homage to you, incomparable one, who as a youthful, powerful lion among men, showed the miracle of Agamanga and deflated the pride of conceited persons. Homage to you, who through skill and means sustained the kingdom and assumed the retinue of queen to accord with the customs of worldlings and help them to become free from errors. Homage to you, who perceived that worldly affairs are insubstantial, renounced the householder's life, and went forth to accomplish the stages of renunciation at each one of the miraculous stupas. Homage to you, who dealt in austerity for 6 years beside the Narayana River, diligently intent on attaining enlightenment and perfect in vigor, attained there the highest stage of meditation. Homage to you, who in order to bring fruit to the efforts you made throughout beginningless time, sat beneath the Bodhi tree in the Markata, and awakened to perfect enlightenment. Homage to you, who then quickly looked upon beings with compassion, and at Varanasi and other holy places, turned the wheel of the doctrines to help them also transverse to liberation by relying on the 3 vehicles. Homage to you, sage, victorious in spiritual battle, who vanquished the demons in the land of Kornchi, and put an end to the erroneous wranglings of Devadatta, the 6 heretical sages and others. Homage to you, who with virtues unequal in the 3 worlds, manifested the great miracle of Sharavasti, and caused the doctrine to be greatly enhanced by the reverence of God's humans and heaven. Homage to you, who to lazy disciples to hasten their efforts, manifested the perishing of your deathless adamantine body
at the pure
abode of Krishna and passed beyond into peace.
Homage to you, who left behind
8 aspects of your body and many relics to show that in reality you had not known, and to help future beings acquire merit through their works. Through the merit of this great unity, in praise of the deeds of the Blessed One, our Master in the holy teachings, may all living beings also become equal to the Buddha in knowledge. May I and all living beings become like you, O King of Shaktas, endowed with a form like yours, a span of life like yours, a radiant like yours, a pure land like yours, and marks of perfection was yours alone. By the coming of the teacher into the world, by the sunshine like glowing of the teachings, and by the concord of Shantas, upholders of teaching and disciples, may it be our good fortune that the teaching long endures.
by the force of the praise and supplication to you, such places I and other
Others
dwell.
dwell.
I pray that illness, demons, poverty, and conflict are pacified, dharma and wealth increased. So maybe, so there is Nagarjuna's praises to the Buddha. Actually, the praises to the dustness. So Chewing Devas, praise dustness. You know, which means the it's the same as the absence of intrinsic emptiness. So particularly in this emptiness is like the quality of the Buddhas. Quality of the Buddha means the essence of the Buddha is the mind that is free from all the afflictive emotions, even the stain of the afflictive emotions. So train the homage to magicians. So in this says, Kanshi kundu mashe sivat namsu namkorwa simje guna yene chujin yana chase. So here the thusness, referring to the emptiness, saying that which is not because of not known that the essence of the natures, which is emptiness, that's why sentient beings cycles in samsara. And then that very reason the sentient being to be free is within the sentient being. Right? That very nature, the emptiness, I prostrate to the emptiness. And then it says, Kanshi Kowe Gurju, Dinin Jangba Cheba, Takba Tini Yangende, Chuji Goya Tinyetos. So that very emptiness, the absence of intrinsic natures of the sentient being, it is the cause. It is the not knowing or kind of misunderstanding or kind of I think so emptiness of the sentient being is that kind of resonates in every sentient beings. So this is by knowing it you can be liberated, but not knowing in the samsara. So the very reason of to be liberated and not liberated is the emptiness, right? And then that purifying the mind, which is not knowing the emptiness, by having purified, become the transcendence of the suffering or transcendence of the second existence. That very emptiness, I'm paying homage to it. So this is Nagarjuna saying. And then this is the reason. So what is the reason the sentient beings not know that very emptiness? So like, so this is like, within the milk, we don't see within the milk there is the butter, right? So we don't see the butter in the milk, but butter is the essence of the milk. So by what you call churning it, right? And then it produces the butters. So as long as we are not really seeing the butter, so that is, this is why the sentient beings are not knowing the essence of themselves. So that very emptiness. And then also Nagarjuna says, Chidar mame pumnane chungse nawa migyuba teshin yumu pumnane chugi yambe. So as long as sentient beings in the darkness, that sentient beings do not see any light, right? So this is like you are in the house and your lights, your lamps is inside the vase. So there is the radiance within the vase, but until it's it breaks or it make hole in it, you don't see the light, right? The candlelight put in the container. So as long as the candle light
within the containers, we don't see the light. So you have to make a hole, or you just break the containers. So in sentient beings who is like similar, like who are in the dark, and their lights is in the another, container. So which when you make the hole in that containers, and then the light kind of comes through it, and then through the Vajra-like concentrations associating with the wisdoms that break the vase container, they totally break that, and then the light that sprays the whole space. So likewise, the sentient beings do possess the nature of the Buddha, right? But they do not understand. Therefore, your afflictive emotions, they, cooperate. Yeah. So, Tesen, Pumbaa Chajuba, Tesen, the Taduban, and Nawachi, Chuji in the Gewamai, Chuji in the Gemai. That very absence of intrinsic nature is not born, not going to be disintegrate, and not going to change at the time. It has no beginning, it has no middle, it has no end. So this is like, Rinshen Benjuye Tunam Kun Veseyans, like diamonds that has by nature it has the radiance, or it's very bright. By nature it's bright. As long as the diamonds within the earth, like under the rock, right? And then the light do not, spread. By digging it out and then take all the rocks out and then kind of, polish it, and then the diamonds start to kind of, gives the light. So similar to sentient beings, the nature is Buddha. It is nature of the sentient being is enlightened, but because of it's covered by afflictive emotions, and then so these defilements, they cover the nature of the sentient beings. So changing in the timaments, koana yu semayis, nyangendana residues. So by through the wisdom that understands the thusness, or the emptiness, or the dependent arising, and that sentient beings, gradually, the processing enlightenment. So. Changing in the timam, koana yu sema, nyangendana residues. Kamyon on the leisure, the solid of the tongue. Kamen on the leisure, but you move by she gave a chip. Chidder Pumbe Yojuba, so and to whom the teaching your mochi yobe, then a sanye shave the thought. So this nature of the consciousness, or nature of the sentient beings, the very nature of the sentient being, as long as it is overpowered by the six constituents, like constituents of the wind, constituents of the water, constituents of the heat, constituents of the space and the consciousness. So as long as it is remain under the power of these six constituents and the habituations, the negative emotions, so it won't shine away. It won't shine, right? So it just kind of like diamonds under the rock. Chidar Pumbat Chidar Pumba later Deni now Juda teaching your one in the Chijukunya Rabdu says. So I think by means of the generating the wisdom, realizing emptiness, and understanding the dependent arising can, shines this, the nature of the sentient beings, the consciousness, the very nature of sentient beings, being no longer being, bound with the six constituents, free from the six constituents, free from the afflictive emotions, then it is become the Dhammadhatu, it's become the Buddhas, right? Chushin Nimbu Medoshin, Jiden and the Perishija, Tea, Jibu Nimbu, normal Sawa Chebata, Nimbu Mebu Koalas. So, yeah, I think here's the Nagarjuna's, the actual, he is trying to point out the real Buddhas. In his understanding, the Buddha is the nature of the mind, which is not, which is free from the six constituents, they're free from all the afflictive emotions, and then dwell or remain in emptiness as it is. So that is, Nagarjuna said, this is the Buddha. So the person who is remain with that is Buddha, or the person is Buddha, right? So what makes the Buddha is the very, it's the consciousness itself. Consciousness, as long as consciousness is always overpowered by, elements, heat, the wind, and then that consciousness is, it's always fragile and always delicate because it's always overpowered by the elements and sometimes the emotional, so the habit and the karmic force. So when the consciousness free from this, no longer affecting by the elements, no longer affecting by the emotions and the habit. So that state is the Buddha. So that he's pointing in the Buddha means the Dhammadhatu. So Dhammadhatu, what is the exact English word for the Dhammadhatu? Yeah.
It's not Buddha nature, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. It's the Buddha natures. And the Buddha nature means is nature that is suitable to be Buddha. Dhammadhatu is already Buddha. Yeah. So I think here in Sanskrit, the Buddha. So Buddha means Buddha can be awakened, and Buddha can be, free from all the influence, right? No longer being, being changed by any influence or emotional element. So come.
I have a couple of questions. First, what does the word dhatu mean? I forgot what dhatu means.
Dhatu is the nature.
Aren't there a certain number of dhatus? As I recall, there were dhatus I thought were categorized somehow. Am I wrong?
Yeah, in Tibetan it says, so kind of, as sometimes in the Sanskrit word Dhamma Dhatu can be, is a form. It is the form. So it's a form means the form of, form of free from all the afflictive emotions. So in Tibetan, Ngo Niku is Ku means form. Ngo Ni means the dustness. Right. So I think the very nature of kind of pure, complete pure nature of the form of complete pure nature of the sentient beings or sentient or mind, complete in the form of complete pure nature of the consciousness. So I think this again, Dhamma Dhatu is, and sometimes in Hindi, Dhatun is like toothbrush. So, Dharma Dhatu is in the form of the form of freedom from afflictive emotions. So which means we are conceptually kind of distinctive, trying to distinct what is the nature of freedom from afflictive emotions, and what is the consciousness that free from afflictive emotions, the freedom itself, and who is free. So that is only you can see the separation, or that kind of in a different form and conceptually. So Dhamma Dhatu is the form of freedom from all the afflictive emotions.
Now you had, I'm sorry, I already forgot the term you used. Or, I'm going to use a term which is incorrect. I'm going to use the word 6 contaminants. You were talking in terms of freedom.
6 constituents.
6 constituents, thank you.
Yeah, 6
constituents. 6 constituents. And 2 of the constituents, usually we think of the water, wind, fire, and earth. Usually we think of those 4. But to those you added, interestingly, space and consciousness. And in 2 contradictory ways. Because on the one hand, we're trying to be, no, that's not a proper statement. The constituents include consciousness itself and space. I'm not sure. Okay, for number 1, I don't understand why it includes consciousness and space. And number 2, then you're talking about Buddha also in terms of consciousness, emptiness, consciousness. And you're using that term consciousness in two seemingly contradictory. What?
Yeah, it seems contradictions. Yeah. Also, constituents. Constituents. The space constituents and space, and the constituents or the water element and the water elements. I see the difference. So the water, the space, air is not the constituents. Like people are not the constituents of the Republican or the Democratic. But there are people who is constituents of the Republican. There's the constituent of the Democratic. So they have already decided in their mind, we follow this party. So the air is don't follow your emotions. The particular air in your body, it follows your emotions. So that's called constituents. So the elements which are already employing your emotions are the constituents of the element. Not the general elements are the constituents. The heat in your body, that heat in your body increases by anger, right? and your anger is not going to increase the heat and outside, right? So that your anger can, right, enhancing your element. Sometimes it's strong fear and a dreadful experience. It cools the body, right? So it produces the cool, right? And then anger, attachments, and that really increases the fire elements. So elements who is employing your emotions are here we are referring at constituents of the element, not all the elements. So the Buddha, the omniscient mind is no kind of different from the energy. Energy, wherever there's the energy, there is always function of the element. So therefore, Buddha can be seen to be blue, green, yellow, or whatever colors. So without element, he cannot turn into any colors, right? So the constituents I have shared, this is like in Tibetan, this we call comes, like sometimes appetite called come. So you have come to eat. So are you appetite to eat? So your elements is kind of elements is making you hungry, right? So this is called come, something that makes you difference, something that changes you in like hungry, thirsty, angry, and attached, jealousy. So that all involves the element in there. So these particular elements who is employing your emotional are called constituents.
So now go into the space and consciousness, please.
Huh?
Now explain space and consciousness which seem to be categorically different than the other four things. Why are those included in the constituents? Because they seem to have a different quality, a different character, a different nature.
Yeah. So I think generally people, when talk about space, they look up in the sky. So here the space is absent or obstructive. It can be in your stomach. It can be in your house. You don't have to look up in the sky. The space is everywhere. So when you move, there is a space. So the existing of the space is relatively existing by depending upon obstructive phenomena. When there's obstructive phenomena, there's something known as a space. By moving it, there's space, right? When there's nothing, there's no obstructive phenomena, the space cannot exist, cannot be known. The space to know, to distinct space, you have to understand space that should be depending upon any obstructive phenomena. So when there's a table, I can say, can I have a space? Then by moving it, I got the space. The space is, the consciousness that moves, which means there is space, right? Consciousness that is, that allows the energy to be formed, big and small, and thick and thin, and then which means it's a space. Yeah, that's a space. You have a space in your hollow in the body. You have space, and everywhere you move, and lips that moving, right? There's a space.
So when we talk about emptiness, are we talking about empty of the elements and empty of space and empty of consciousness itself. I'm trying to understand how emptiness relates to these 6 constituents. Trying to understand that.
So here we are talking about emptiness. Emptiness is, empty of self-existing, empty of independent identity. So empty of independent identity is, which means, without a basis, there is no empty of the independent identity without basis. So emptiness here is emptiness of I, emptiness of, body, emptiness of consciousness. So it has to be touched on the kind of on the basis of the 5 aggregates.
I have a question that's similar.
So I think again this is here Dhamma Dhatu is, what is causing us to remain in second existence? What binds us in samsara? So here is the idea of what makes you samsaric being. So here the cause that which kind of which making me the samsaric being is my concept constantly viewing me and my and solid existence. So emptiness means here the particular the Dhamma Dhatu means, and you have not just negated intellectually, you have directly the experiencing that very absence of me and my and absence of independent. So here the thusness or the Dhamma Dhatu is the consciousness which reveals that the empty of independent I and mind. By that consciousness is being totally free from all the afflictive emotions, even the stain of the afflictive emotions. That quality is called Dhamma Dhatu. So for me to be sentient beings, to me to be samsaric beings, as long as my mind viewing independent I and mind, that make me a samsaric being. As long as once the individuals whose mind is completely understood, convincing, and directly experiencing the absence of independent I and mind, that is transcendence of the suffering.
Now, the one thing that kind of seems to be a common denominator of both samsara and nirvana, I don't know if it's true of neither samsara and nirvana, and both samsara and nirvana, I don't know. But the thing that seems to be in common with at least samsara and nirvana is the word being. And does that being apply to nirvana as someone who has attained nirvana, a being, or only a being in, again, a relative conventional self? Or does that person actually somehow go beyond beingness itself?
I don't think there's a beingness, B-E-I-N-G, right? B-E-I-N-G is being.
Yeah.
Huh? So
beingness is the state of being.
So
being.
that's being is in your strength of being or the being. So if you
I may be a B-E-A-N, talking about B-E-I-N.
So I think you're trying to understand the meaning of the being in B-I-N-G or in the
Yeah.
strength of expressing it. So other than that, there is no being. So there is no a forest being a forest. So the forest is not being by itself. The forest is constructed by the conception, right? Similarly, I am as a person is conceptually constructed. It is not the body, it is not the feeling, it is not the consciousness, or not all together say we are going to make person, right? It is your thought. So by, I think reason of, why, so we are constructing myself and others, right? And then how do we see, for example, when there is, when there's no fence, so I cannot say this is my space and your space. So when I put the fence there, so then say, oh, this from here my space, from there your space, or is the public space. So the space is not really, being by itself as your space and the other space. Your eye consciousness very, kind of seeing the body, that this is your body and this is other body. And then here, when I get hungry in this body and I say, I am hungry. When you get hungry in your body, I don't say I'm hungry. So we see the basis, there is the kind of, like a fence. This is your and this is mine. So that gives you the thought, the ideas. Oh, I am, this is I am. Now, similarly, when you apply to the mothers, right? When the mother and her children, children that like other children, she sees the difference. When she sees her own child, she don't see the difference. So because it's mine, right? So it's my children's. Other children's is other people. So we see the difference, you and I, because the body that see with your eye. When your mind thinking that, oh, my existing is depending on them, the others. My existing, my identities, my knowledge, my perfections, all kind of depending upon others. Then you don't see that the walls in there between. So the wall is not just I, right? They're making distinctions, right? They're making a distance you and others, not just by I, your thought. So you don't care others, and this body is, every moment this body is saying, I am, right? I am hungry, I feel comfortable, I'm not comfortable, right? I am ill, I am cured. So they constantly, reminding you that this part is yours. And at the same time, you have no understanding, no compassion, genuine compassion towards others. And then you see very kind of, there is a perfect wall between you and others. So when you expand the compassion towards others, the walls, so disappears. So this is like, mother who sees her child as a kind of, part of her. So sentient beings, the samsaric beings, as long as your mind so convincingly viewing me and mine solidly existing, that makes you sentient beings, not the elements, not the wind, not the air, not the, color, sound, smell, taste, tactilities. Samsaric is because of misconception.
when we vow, when we take our Bodhisattva vow to save all sentient beings, based on what you're saying, the word sentience is a fabrication.
Yeah.
The word being is a fabrication.
Now you
And
see
even the word saving,
Yeah.
I suppose, a fabrication.
now you see the artificial intelligence. They say, I am sentient being. So, AI says, I am being. I have a perfect definition of the sentient beings. Sometimes people make sentient being or being and tree, a rock. Like, so people who are so devoted, right, to the Bhagavan, to the God, like, and you see it in India, in a very remote area, the villages. So if someone, like, every day they walk through that tree, and he fell once, he fell twice, he fell 3 times, then said, there must be something in this area. And then he would put one rock in there, right? And someone someone smashed the coconut in there. And then he imposed, there's something there's some kind of energy, right? And then the rest of the people says, oh, maybe that he felt this something. So then people just impose it. Then rock is not voluntarily become a being, but you make by imposing it. So I think this is like our air, our heat, the bloods. There is no sentient being at all. So by experiencing it, it's feel like something. So you just conceptually say, oh, I am. Right? And then this I am has no sense of, caring for other things. So this is constantly remind you there's something. So we impose, oh, here's I am. I'm a person, I'm a male, I'm female, I'm monk, I'm not monk. So the being is, it's not that by itself being. You made it's some kind of, by imposing it. So there's something to be called a man or woman. So no waters in the woman's body is women. No heats in the man is the heat. No bloods is male or female. There is no sentient being, male, female at all within this body, within the consciousness. So something that is non-existing, constantly seeing it, viewing it, that's called ignorant beings. So that designed you, or that kind of, perfectly made you the samsaric beings. Samsaric beings who is constantly carried by ignorance and afflictions. So the Dhammadhatu is free from this misconception, this emotionals. And, the consciousness which understands the reality as it is, correctly, unmistakably, remaining as it is forever. So I think it's at first maybe it just feels strange and it's very surprising when you say, when you think about your body, how the body got structures, right? So we say with the body we say this, there is a man, there is a woman. But when you look into the body, there is nothing to be find an illustration of the male or female, where there is nothing but something exists from non-existing, which means it's a superimposing. So I think that the very absence of being or entity or identity, the entity, the identity so totally dissolve in the absence, in the a totally absence in the basis. The myself totally divided within the body is one of the reality. That is also reality. I'm not in skin, I'm not a skin, I'm not in blood, I'm not a blood, I'm not heat, I'm not in heat, I'm not a space, I'm not in space. So which means this body is a totally absence and devoid of existing of the self. If that is the one of the fact, and by depending upon, so to say, when there is no self or person at all, and by viewing, imposing the self or person, it is superimpositional or it is the conventional reality. So then there's two. One, if you insist that the person must be exist within the body or within the body and from the body, that is superimposition. When you say, there is the person that exists depending upon body, then this is not a superimposition, right? When you look at north and you say there's the south, when you look at the west, oh, this is the east. This is not superimposition. It's the, you are constructing, you are projecting by depending on something. Like, 10 directions, the time, and the 3 times, all dependently arising, dependently exist. We are not saying the past exists in present. We are not saying the future is existing in present. We are simply says the future things are not a thing, but it exists as a futures because of the present. So we are not trying to, place the future in the present, not in the future itself. So the dependent arising exists. With this dependent arising, yes, there is the male, there is a female, there is a good, and there is a bad. So when you think the person is in the aggregates, or it is from the aggregates, that is logically is not approvable. There is no logic, then the reason you can prove the person is in the body or inside the body or outside the body. So like, a forest is a singular, and we say for a forest as a singular is not in the trees, not outside of the tree, but depending on the collection of the tree, yes, there is something to be known as a forest. So that's a dependent arising. So I think we are maybe it's challenging because our definitions, our way of viewing things is incorrect. So we always see the white and black. Everything's just cut. So in the reality, it's not like white and black. So if everything is very solid, right, like clean cuts, so then you have to put the sign. This is north. This is the east. So wherever put the sign, this cannot be found north. If you go a little bit beyond that, the sign, you put this east, and beyond that, and you look back, that's become north again. That become west again, right? From the east again, that's the west. So you cannot put the sign, this is east, this is west, this is north. It's relatively, right? Yeah, so you have to feed this reasoning with this logic and reasoning, not just one time, right? 1,000 times reminds you, then it opens something, So it's kind of the possible of, revealing some kind of new kind of realizations. Otherwise, it's just like it's kind of discussing about the movie. So like, as was that things, and then you just go back home and you forget it. Right? And tomorrow again comes. So what's his name? so I think here that the ultimate and the conventionals, the ultimate and the conventionals, there's a one nature of the phenomena that is never changes, right? Like, there's the one nature of the impermanence that they never change. One of the one that constantly changing. So then you can say, like impermanence, uncertainty of the impermanence is never changed because it is impermanent, therefore it is not certain, right? So the conditional phenomena, things that is moving, that is functioning, is impermanent. It is uncertainty. Uncertainty of the impermanent is the certainty. So like, lying, this the kind of the lie speech. The lie speech, like just by hearing it is not necessarily you understand it's lying. So once you understand it is lie, right, every kind of meaning that from that speech is not fit with reality, not fit with fact. So understanding of that, and then this lie will stop deceiving you. So similarly, conventional reality is like that. Male, female, good or bad, is on the west, south, or the north. So all of them, like 3 times, the yesterday, tomorrow, and then today's 3 times, they exist relatively. They do not exist intrinsically. They do not exist by their own essence, right? Identity of the future is not identified by the future itself. So yeah, I think that's the kind of yes, and also yeah. So the thusness, the Chü Di Ying, so Dhamma Dhatu, is actually it is it is the very nature, pure quality of the Buddha's mind, right? And what is that? Again, it is nothing but emptiness. emptiness of the omniscient. Then you would say, oh, if the emptiness, why is it called Dhammadhatu? Why is it called Buddha? Because emptiness, sentient being has emptiness. Sentient beings, the emptiness of the sentient being's mind, emptiness of the omniscient, right? True. So why one is called Dhammadhatu? Why is not calling this the emptiness of sentient beings Dhammadhatu? So that reminds me, there's some kind of, there's a joke. So one rich man, he is wearing very expensive watch, and then the poor man wearing maybe $35 watch, and poor man says, so what's the difference? The both gives the time correctly, and the rich man says, this shows the time of me. That shows the time of you. So it's your time. It's my time. So the emptiness is the same. This omniscience, emptiness, sentient beings, emptiness. This emptiness is absence, not just absence of intrinsic. It is a freedom from the freedom of the afflictive emotions. So it's emptiness. Yeah, in the emptiness, there is no difference. It's equal. But when the Buddha, so by kind of so omniscience, by revealing or by kind of being in emptiness, and they experience permanent bliss, because when the omniscient experience the object, is experiencing object from total freedom from the afflictive emotions. The sentient being experience, experience the clothing, the food with negative emotions. So there is not much exciting, not much peace there. Yes, Larry. Anything else? I think, yeah, we are always, our concept is so powerful. Because we are, strongly, influenced or kind of habituated by the, I think our habituations is very powerful, because we tend to believe, to find the meaning from the languages. Then we try to collect the terms, and we thought we understand, right? So I think, yes, if it's the just conversations, like communications, maybe the language, the vocabularies may help you. But it totally relying on the terms and terminologies. And then because the language is a verbal kind of, structures, right? Verbal structures. They're still following your concept. So every word that expressing is what you imagine is expressing. A direct object or direct meaning is what you meant in your thought. Your thought is always mistakenly engaged in every object. So yeah, too much rely on the language. The language says, yeah, oh, here's the man, there's the woman, there's the male, this is the person, and this is the monk, this is the geisha. So you say, oh, kind of, your concept, your thought is accepting, is really independent So in the language also says, with I, in the language also says, putting the fence, you have cut the space. So in which way you have cut the space? Is the fence, is cutting the space? The space cannot be cut. But when you put the fence, you see there's a clear, there's a, so yeah, you make a very clear divisions, your space and my space. And then, which means you are not really understanding the definition of the space. Space is a mere absence of obstructive. So it's no obstructive is the space. So no obstructive, how can you cut? How can you divide? So you are making, you are kind of, you can make, how's that? Make divisions or divide physical to the physical, right? You say this physical part, yours, this mind. So with that, your conceptual things, I have to make it kind of, I have divided the space because when you make this divisions, I have this much space. So that's kind of how the language has deceived us, So maybe once again to remind you the constituents of the elements which are within your body is constituents because they are employing your emotionals. They are functioning due to the karma and the habituations of the emotionals. So that's why these elements in your body is constituents. The space, the kind of the hollow in your body is called constituents of the space. The blood that flows in the body is constituents of the water element. And then the earth constituents earth element. And then each consciousness, eye consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, strongly rely on these elements and the element, right? Sense power and the element. Eye consciousness is strongly relying on eye sense power and the elements, right? Because if the element disturbs, so I could see things, right, in angers, in every strong anger can cause the eye to see everything is red. So emotional can influence the eye consciousness. And also, if you are not feeling well, your elements imbalance, again, that cause, the eye sense power to see things differently. So, eye consciousness is strongly relying on the elements and eye sense powers. So it's still under the influence of the constituents, eye consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness. So this is so-called constituents of the consciousness. Even your mental consciousness that is subsequently generated with the eye sense consciousness, eye consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, those mental consciousness that follow this sensory perception. So also part of the constituents of the consciousness. Now, which is not the constituents means when you reveal something, when you gain, when you realize something convincingly, right? So with logic and the reasoning so convincingly, that consciousness is not under the influence of the constituents, right? So this, wisdom that understands the dependent risings, understands the truth of sufferings, so can be, can be go beyond the constituents.
What does it mean to be free from your constituents?
So free from constituents means, the elements no longer being able to influence to your mind, to yourself. Right now, right now we are almost every day influenced by our elements. Elements influence you. Elements are influenced by your emotional.
And if we're dependent on the elements,
Yeah.
how can you be free?
So, when the mind, the conscious, this is why here's the, here I think like Dharma Dhatus or the omniscient. Omniscient is this pure state of mind, right? And the pure state of mind, and the energy that goes with omniscient is also pure. It is exactly follows the omniscient. It is the energy of the omniscient is not influencing the omniscient. Out of that, the omniscient, out of omniscience, it kind of manifests in any form, like wrathful form or kind of the peaceful form or small or the big, is not under the influence of the element. Right. So otherwise, maybe you see some of the deities like raising their hand for long time, and they may get hurts. So the back pain. Some Buddhas are very. they need to go to the chiropractors. So this, so these the forms or energies, all the functions are not under the influence of the elements. So they do not have the constituents of the element. They have elements, do not have constituents of the elements.
So is the constituents mean that they're under the influence of karma and delusion? I mean, like there's that elements that are pure.
I think the best example is, you see the Republican constituents and Democratic constituents. First, the leaders, they influence the, constituents, and then the constituents kind of overpowered on the leaders. So leader, if even they want to say something kind of correctly, right, they have to follow their constituents. So similarly, our emotions influence the elements. Elements got trained by the negative emotions. Now the elements influence you. How can you be happy? How can you be so sure? Right? Because the elements are trained by your emotional. So that's what it's perfectly, you see that. So Republican constituents, the Democratic constituents. So first, people, they kind of, the leaders, they, poison their mind, and then their leaders has to follow the crazy peoples, right? So we make crazy our elements. The elements, makes you crazy. So that's called constituents. So the Buddhas, the omniscience, there's the elements, the space, there's the water, there's the earth element, there's the all space elements. None of those elements is influencing the Buddha. So Kamnam the Midemas, one who is free from the constituents.
Sometimes, like particularly in Tibetan medicine, they talk about balancing the elements.
Yeah.
Here we're not talking about balancing. We're talking about being freed from the kind of what's the word? The bonds that the elements cause with our emotion and our afflictions and whatnot. So when you go to a Tibetan doctor, sometimes they say, oh, this medicine has special curative power. It's not just working on your body, it's working on your mind. I never know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
I'm a little suspicious of that claim, I have to admit, but it's possible, of course. But so I noticed in what you're saying, there's no talk here of balancing, of creating some kind of balance as a way of dealing with afflictions. We're talking about completely cutting the bonds, if I'm understanding you.
The balancing is, and useful in circus. So if you're playing a show in the circus, then balancing is very important. So right now we are not going to be in the balance. So we are not this, not there. We are trying to find perfect place. There's no need to balance. Some people talked very balancingly. So it's just which means you are not really totally open. Your speech is very balanced. Your actions are very balanced. Means you're always kind of cautious, which means there is a possibility of falling on the both sides. I'm not sure about the Tibetan medicine that works for the mind. And first of all, the doctor should be perfectly in balance. So
okay,
it's the essentials.
What about wind horse practice? I thought wind horse practice, was very much about balancing elements. Is it not true? What in view of this thing about being free of afflictions, by understanding the nature of fabrications and eventually kind of frame oneself from those fabrications. Yet at wind horse is a Vajrayana practice. And I thought that the purpose of wind horse, maybe I could totally misunderstand, is to bring balance to the elements in a state of health, to mind and body. So wind horse is either a Buddhist practice to free one of afflictions, or it would, and maybe I'm creating an artificial separation here, or it's a non-Buddhist practice of balancing your elements so you'll be healthy and able to function well. So which is it?
Yeah, the balance is there. So balance, people who is, I think wherever there's some kind of, finding place to be balanced, which means they are often imbalance. So when we talk about the omniscience, the liberations, and there's no imbalance, there's no balance. And here in samsara, yes, there's a balance and imbalance. So you can find the balancing in elements by meditations, by sleeping, by relaxing, right? By listening to music, or kind of, do anything like taking medicine, sleeping pills. Also, so there's the balancing. And also, the wind horse you're talking about, doing some kind of puja, like some kind of, invoking some spiritual kind of practice, And also sometimes so if you have depressions, so there's one of the kind of say in the morning, early morning. So when you pour the water on the tree and look up in the sun, and you have to find the balance, that not look or the radiance, the lights, just look into the sun, the very kind of shape itself, both eye open. So that really helps, brings the energy to you. Maybe I think like immediately it frees you from the depressions. So from the sun. So first you have to like one eye and try to look into the sun, the round sun, and then forget about trying to kind of those lights. So if then one eye open, second eye open, both eye open, looking into the sun. So I think, yeah, sometimes with that kind of, there is some kind of, there's some kind of effect in there. But the spiritual, there's some religion, they named it, is the Bhagavan, kind of God of sun, is blessing you. But, we are not sure this is there is some kind of Bhagavan in there. But it helps. So Tantrayana practice, some of those are like staring at sun. There's one practice. Right.
Well, going back to this question of Windhorse, bring up another one, a major, very important Nyingma practice. Riwo Sangcha. Riwo Sangcha. I don't know if they have this in Gelugpa lineage. But the Riwo Sangcha, again, if I understand it, maybe I don't understand it at all. Maybe I'm completely dumb, which is probably likely. Riwo Sangcha, I thought, again, you're trying to create a balance of the elements. It says does something to balance the elements. But like now, I guess we're going to Dzogchen here. Is this, these are presumably practices of liberation, if I understood. But yet they're balancing the elements, and now I don't know what anything is anymore. I don't know whether something is liberating or there's completely something else going on, and whether the view of what's going on from different lineages is different. Now I'm completely confused about this issue of balancing and liberation. I'm completely confused about it.
That means you have understood something. You have opened some kind of, lights that breaks things.
That's what I've been told whenever I don't have a clue, whenever I'm completely clueless.
So that is, now you have built a foundation to build something. Now it's depending up to you. Do you want to build the liberation house or enlightenment? So it kind of, this is good.
I'm afraid I'm gonna build a rope to hang myself and just choke to death.
Yeah, that's so this is what's the dependent arisings knowledge that you generated, and then you can see that samsara can crack. One wisdom can crack the samsara. So other emotions, other knowledge, the practice, the faith, compassions, has no power to, bring the crack on the samsara, the wisdoms. So that is the, confusion is, maybe that's the kind of sign of crack on the samsara. So you're no longer, hijacked by these belief systems. So
Well, I think a lot
So-
of people would confirm that I'm cracked, which means crazy.
So whatever, yeah. I think, yeah, some people feel more comfortable in, holding on some kind of, what do you call it, religious creed, that kind of, right, creed. So they just kind of comfortable with that. But there's nothing really, that nothing that you experience kind of the benefit, but you're afraid if you let it go. So I think maybe this is one of the other way of naming is comfort zone. So you're trying to make comfort zone, and you find it. So with this belief, maybe this may help. Maybe this is the way. So following the belief systems, it's a kind of, I think it's almost nature in humans and even the animals, because we are under the influence of the habituations. Once you build this habit of following something, and then you also have a fear, and there may be not another way. So this is like a person who is addicted in smoking. So when he smoke, he don't find any taste in the smoke. He don't have any good taste in there. But he thinks this is the kind of way of relaxing. So if someone kind of took the whole cigarette and he get nervous, so now I have no comfort zone to be relaxed. So not because he found the peace in there, not because he found some kind of good taste in there. So this everybody do that, like sentient beings, Sentient beings, sentient beings means, sometimes we call childish being, sometimes sentient being, samsaric being, and self-centered being. So which means, not aware about the reality, and they wanted to know the reality. And then often they find, a wrong path, mistaken path to find the truth. So if you have gained some kind of knowledge that breaks all the belief systems, I think that's the good sign. That is the perfect balancing to make something new. So here, and also, so Qi Ying's Dharma Dhatu, or kind of nature of the phenomena, or ultimate nature of the phenomena. So ultimate nature of the phenomena is kind of, so when we talk about the transcendence of suffering, Nyangele Deba. So it's still, everything is pointing at this emptiness, transcendent sufferings, or ultimate nature of the phenomena, or Dhammadhatu, or very cause for the sentient being to be misunderstood or understand is the emptiness. By misunderstanding emptiness, samsara, knowing the emptiness is liberations. So the emptiness is the emptiness means that you are emptying or pacifying your mental projections, right? Total pacification of all mental construct or the mental projections. So the pacifying mental construct, mental projections does not mean destroying and denying every conventional reality. It is pacifying means understanding mental projections do not exist by their own essence, and going beyond the concept, and right, you have reached some kind of fact of the reality, the truth that is beyond reach of your emotional, beyond reach of your concept. So you reach there. So by having, being abiding in that absence, often, constantly kind of, driving yourself into that many times, then you can understand, oh, this is how we believe. This existing is relatively, there is no essence there, like east and west, north and south, yesterday, like past, futures, present. So remaining of the present is conceptual. Like I often say, minute remaining for 60 seconds is a conceptual. So minute remaining for 60 seconds is, if not as conceptual, it has to be intrinsic. So the minute, either you have to give up the definition of the minute, or you have to believe minute is the consist of 6 seconds, and it is existing with each seconds. So how about if there is the consist of 60 seconds as a minute, that existing with 60 seconds means 60 seconds 60 times. So it's kind of, is that you have to accept, satisfy with this conception. So do not destroy it, and do not destroy means don't annihilate it, and accept as it is. You can accept all the new realities with that. So I think all Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna's every praises and his writing is all about the dependent originations. So maybe he's, pretty much kind of, he's the suggesting that so liberation or enlightenment, everything, from one source, that's a dependent originations. So and then we make questions, or if the dependent origination emptiness is that much power, you can choose enlightenment and liberations. And why not those arhats become enlightened, great enlightenment? Why those arhats become not Buddha? So then you can understand emptiness and the dependent arisings, relatively existings. If you continuously focus on emptiness, and that emptiness is a very kind of, only around that absence of the self of the person, and there's not much exercise on the dependent originations. So then this realization of emptiness only helps you to free from the afflictive emotions, not the stain of the afflictive emotions. There's not much expanding the knowledge and concentrations. So this is why who understand the dependent originations, the emptiness, and then Tantrayana, they exercise all possibilities, mental projections. They find there's a playground to expand their knowledge. So not to fixate on all of them, rather just project and play and exercise. And then that's each mental projections that kind of again and again reveals you the absence of intrinsic existence. Yeah. So maybe we should a little bit meditate on this. Just first contemplate means trying to see kind of separately. Oh, there's the water, the moistures in the body, and then the earth solidities in the body, the space in the body, and the air that's inhale and exhale. The inside the body, air comes in the body, goes out from the body, and you see every elements. So try to bring your mind closer to each elements, and then it reveals you. This is not me. There is no me. Air that comes in, there's no me. When it goes out, there's no me. The hollow in the body is just because the hollow is happen to be existing when this body, and then there's hollow. When there's no body, there's no particular hollow in there. So there is, and then the liquidities, the moistures, the blood that flows in the body, it just they are functioning temporarily, right? Temporarily. As long as this breath is continuing, there's the heat and the moistures. When the breath stops, there's no moistures. They totally dissolve, completely dissolves within the space. Nothing. There is no person, there is no male, there's no female at all. And then again, conventionally, you're projecting in the center of your body, that's kind of, dot that you created, a project, the white dot, and it's tiny and very bright. And then you imagine that I am inseparable from this white dots, which is placed on this in the center of your body. And again, you just go into that, white dots and become inseparable. Again, you look up all the elements, the airs, the moistures, the earth, the space. Each you try to see is the difference. There's a difference because without without yourself placing in that doubt and imagining the water and the earth and space, and with having imagining you are inseparable, that is white dots which it places in the center of the body, and then looking into those elements. So from this you can understand the Dhamma Dhatu. Maybe 1 minute you can do it, right? Just So first you just focus on the air that comes in and out, from the mouth. Breathe in and out. See each air that when it goes out and comes in, it's just the air. There's no male, there's no female. This is not a person. And then the heat, due to this air comes in and out, is still the heat that is produced by the air comes in and out. And as a result of the heats that produces in the body and the moistures that produce, from the moistures, the solidities, and then the air that flows inside the hollow is a space. This is also not a person, not a sentient beings. And they remain in that total absence of yourself. And then projects the white dots in the space in the center of your body, like in the spine. And you see, I'm inseparable with these white dots. So while remaining inseparable with the white dots, yourself as inseparable white dots, and again reflect on this air that comes in and out, and the heat, the moistures, the space, the earth. So this also kind of, realizations has so much impact on the element that calms the element again. So elements that are constantly trained and the impact influenced by your emotion has now got a little bit more, more calm. So not finding yourself at all inside and outside of the aggregates is the ultimate truth of yourself. So like you project or impose the white dot as an illustration of yourself, so you also, from the combination of the all elements and conceptually projecting I am, and then characterize this is the male, this is the female, this is a monk, and this is not a monk. So this whole projections, it is nothing but, mental fabrications. So they do not exist by their own essence. They are made up to be existing by the thought. In this way, east, west, north, south is also by projections. Time is by projections. Past is existing by projections. Future existing by projections. Remaining of the present is through the projections. So all of them, if something exists, before the mind, that means is it fabrications. So with these fabrications, when you see it's solid, that makes you angry, that makes you jealous, that makes you fixations. So, so all these, anger and attachments is grasping this mental constant, and these emotions triggers and activated. Yeah, so Dharma here, we call Sim Jongje, the instrument to preparing yourself to understand something. Here the Nagarjuna says, contemplate the impermanence, the condition of suffering is preparing yourself. Right? And then once you understand this ultimate truth, now you understand the Dharma. With this understanding Dharma, and you understand the possibility of liberations, possibility of enlightenment. So in this way, you see the Buddha. Right? Yeah, okay. Chanju Semjo Rinpoche, Majebana, Jeji, Jebanyamba, Mebanya, Kone Kondo Pebbles. Tonya Dawa Rinpoche, Majebana, Jeji, Jebanyamba, Mebanya, Kone Kondo Pebbles. Pama Semjen Damjen, Dada Deji, Yendro Tamje Tata Tonga. Chanju Semba Kama Sushu, Dada Gunja, Molom Jujuruchi, Carrera Regovi, Shilansu, Pendan de Wama, Juju, and Cheresoma, Tenzin Yadu, Shabba, Sideba, Tenjuruchi.
May the precious Buddha mind not yet born arise in the world. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother sentient beings have all their happiness, and may all the lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all of their merits be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. O powerful Chandrakirti Tenzinganso, remain in this world until sunset.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.